Okay, happy Veterans Day. We have Mr. Darrell Knedgen here to speak to our 5th through 8th grade students about his time in the National Guard, is that correct? National Guard?
Army.
U.S. Army. And you were stationed in Japan
Yes,
during the Korean War.
yes. Well, right after the Korean War.
Right after the Korean War. So he's going to tell us a little bit about his time in the Army, and then we'll open it up for some questions. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Anytime. Well, I guess we better start at the beginning. I was inducted in the Army in November the 21st, 1953 in Kansas City. From Kansas City, I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, where I took my basic training for 8 weeks. During that 8 weeks, they would give you a test every now and then for something or another. And after graduated from basic training, when they looked at all the tests, they about died laughing at that dumb hillbilly from Missouri. He was dumb as a rock. So they figured they had to send him to school. So I went to school for 8 weeks. They called it the supply school, something or another. When I graduated from that school, they loaded us on an airplane at Fort Riley and flew us out to Fort Lewis, Washington. And now that was before, it was an old propeller plane, no jet engines in it. It took us 8 hours to fly out there. And that was the very first time I was ever on an airplane. And when we went over the mountains, you could just about see that you could just about reach down and touch them. But anyway, when we got to Fort Lewis, we stayed out there for a couple of days, maybe a week, and they took us down to the harbor and loaded us on a troop ship. And we didn't know where we were going. But 10 days later, we landed at Yokohama, Japan, Camp Drake. And that is the first time that I ever seen an Oriental. And they all look kind of like the same to me. But the reason I could remember them real good, we was in the bathroom, of course, in the Army, that's a latrine. They call it a latrine. We was a bunch of us in there all the time because that was a big outfit. And there's a German woman come in, not a German woman, a Japanese woman come in there and picking up cigarette butts. She was recycling them. Well, that's the first time I'd seen them up close to a Japanese. And from there, we got on a bus, and the bus and ferry boats, we went all the way up to Hokkaido, Japan. That's as far as you can go, unless you get to Russia. And it was in sometime in May when we got up there. And there was about 5 inches of snow and sleet on the ground when we got up there. That was in May now. And on a clear day up there, you could see the mountains in Siberia. So we stayed up there for the summer, and that fall we moved down to Honshu, Japan. That was a big army camp that was the Japanese army camp. And there we took our winter training, which I've got some pictures, I think, of when they did that. And by spring, we was pretty well knew how to go about it. Anyway, when we were up there, we had 2 Japanese that didn't stay in our barrack. They come in every day. One was a barber, and one was a tailor. And we got along real good with those. And they could talk a little American, and we could finally understand a little of their Japanese. But anyway, that summer, we, three of us decided we wanted to go to the Air Force Base. There was an Air Force Base there in Honshu. And so we took a bus down to a big town and looked it over. Then we were gonna take a train to the Air Force Base. Well, we didn't know where the train station was. So we couldn't find anybody, civilians, that would speak English. But we found a Japanese patrolman on foot. Well, he was on foot. And he didn't speak a word of English either. And after we was arguing with him for a while, I happened to have a comic book in my pocket that had a picture of a train on it. Showed him the picture, also, follow me. So we took off, and I'm sure that he didn't take any shortcuts to the train station. By the time we got to the train station, we was escorted by 5 patrolmen. And you think we didn't get odd looks at? They probably thought we was the Jesse James gang. But anyway, got on the train, or we thought we told them where we were going. Got on the train, was on there a good while, didn't get to where we was going. We finally decided we was going the wrong direction. So we found a lady on the train that could speak English, and she straightened us out, so we had to get off the train, wait for the next train to go back, and at that time it was getting late enough, we decided just to go back to camp, so we never did make it to the air base. But that was a pretty experience with 5 cops following us. So we made it back. And another incident that we was doing, they had a cherry festival. And practically the whole company went. They chartered buses to go there. And that was something more or less like a fair. And there was a lot of veteran Japanese there that had been wounded in the army. And they were, I guess, begging for whatever they could get from any of us. But now that was a very embarrassing place too. We had to go to the bathroom, and we eyed the bathroom, and there was men and women both going into the bathroom. So we waited till it was about empty, we thought, and we peeled in there, and we were lined up in there, and some giggling girls come in behind us. And that was very embarrassing. So, that's about all I can tell you about that. Anything, I got pictures here from winter training that y'all can look at, and then you can ask questions. It's been a long time since I've been over there, and I really can't remember everything, but I'll try to do my best.
I just thought it'd be helpful. I know, speaking for my 7th and 8th grade class, we cover World War I and II heavily in history class, but we don't really talk about Korean War as much. So could you give the kids an idea of what was going on in the United States at this time and how we came to be in the Korean War?
Well, now, I don't know. I won't comment on that.
Okay.
But after we got over to Japan, we had a couple scares for sure, right after we got there, because we just knew, pack up your things, we're moving out. So we had to pack everything up, and I went to I guarded the ammunition dump all day, and they called it off. That was just a practice run. But as far as Korea, I never did make it there. I'm glad I didn't. But, anything? Any questions?
I'll start passing your pictures around if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then if someone's brave enough to come up here for the first question.
There's one thing that is, I think I put it in there. this is something that is American, that probably a lot of the kids have never seen. American money, $2 bills. Have you?
I've seen them. Mm-hmm. We'll start a few over here. Does anybody have a question they want to ask? Someone's gotta be brave.
Chad, what was you guarding that time? What was you guarding, you said?
Ammunition dump.
And what was that?
That's where they kept all the ammunition.
Oh, ammunition. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I can see why they wanted to guard that.
What was your
You gotta turn it on, Dylan.
What was your day-to-day life like?
Okay, where's my interpreter?
What was your day-to-day life like?
What?
Your day-to-day life.
Get up at 5 o'clock. Clean up. Had to shave every day. Eat breakfast, then we go trade. You had to get a haircut every month though. Every week you had to get a haircut. And shine your shoes. You had to keep your shoes shined. That's for sure.
Who's next? Maybe three of you wanna start a line over here? And I'll just send you up. Who wants to go out there?
How many years did you serve?
You got to
2.
speak slowly.
You served 2 years. What was boot camp like? The training.
You don't wanna know. You just don't wanna know. I heard some of the people say that that was the closest place to hell that they ever wanted to get.
Did you get to eat a lot of Japanese food, and did you like it?
No.
No?
Never did. We were cautioned not to. See, the Japanese really didn't like us. And we were cautioned not to go out among them by yourself. Always be 2 or 3. But we never had any problems whatsoever. Except when they said, put us on that train and sent us the wrong direction. I'm sure they did that on their own. I'm sure they did.
How many years were you in combat?
I didn't understand that.
How many years were you in combat?
Oh,
Wait,
no combat. Just training.
can you like come up here so he's looking this way?
Only thing I killed over there was a mole.
I remember that story.
Huh?
I remember you telling that story.
You wanna know it?
Yeah, tell about the mole.
Okay.
Come this way, so he's looking this way.
Walking fire guard around the officers' quarters. Had a path around there. And that mole was worked up and I'd stop it down. Next time I'd make the round, of course, if we walk real slow, he would have it up again. So I got tired of that. I marched down, pulled my bayonet, squatted down right side of him, and when he worked, I put a bayonet in him.
Did you get any letters from home, like from your family?
Oh, yes, definitely.
And you wrote letters. Did you write letters?
And I wrote letters, yes. Got family, and that time I was writing to a girl too.
Which girl? Because I don't know about this girl. It wasn't my mom, because he met her later. We'll
Well-
delve into that later.
Anything else?
What was the weather like there?
What was the weather like?
Cold as heck. Cold as heck, and it got hot in summer too.
So did it snow a lot there?
You'll see some pictures, if you looked at them, you can see how the snow was.
Deep.
And,
Deep.
what was the cherry festival like?
What was the cherry festival like?
Something similar to a fair.
Do you have pictures of that too?
I think if I brought something else, I should be, had something you should have.
He also learned to ski when he was over in Japan. I just want to let y'all
I
know
was
this.
winter training. I had skis, on the machine gun platoon, that's what I was in, all had skis. But the infantry had snowshoes. And, if you've never been on skis, have you all ever roller skated? That's about like we started out. We sat on our butt a lot. But the fun was, I think I've got a picture of it. After we got onto it, we'd be pulled around with a weasel. That's a track deal. But they would have a big long rope, and everybody'd be hanging on that rope. But whenever one of them would fall, that wiped out all the rest.
Next question?
I do want you all to know that my dad is so protective of us daughters. When we were invited to go skiing, he would not let us because he said it was too dangerous.
It was dangerous.
But I know some of y'all have already been skiing, and we had a class trip years ago that we went skiing, and I could not ski. I was pretty embarrassed.
I know this is not Korean War related, but can you tell the kids about how, like, coming home and meeting Margie and starting a family and what life was like afterwards?
Well, when I got out of the service, I was really lost. You wouldn't think in 18 months that things had changed as much as they did. Everybody I ran around with was either married, in the army, or moved away. So I was really lost for a while. And Margie, met her at a blind date. My sister worked at the factory where she worked. She introduced us, you know. Led to a marriage license, and I guess it was good, because it's still good.
How many years?
How many years? How many years has it been?
Good gracious alive.
And the best thing was,
60,
he got 3 wonderful daughters.
that's the meanest one. What is, 60-some?
Yeah, 58. No, 57 you were married.
56 we were married.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the source is very. is that?
I don't know.
Come on, people with math. Sixty-seven, okay.
66.
Thank you, I was gonna say that, around
Yeah,
66.
last year.
We've got a mathematician in here.
66, we figured it out.
You.
And what did you do, Dad? Tell them what you did. What was your occupation then, when you came?
What was your job?
Well, I guess you could say I was a jack of all trades and master of none. I was a farmer. I bent a lot of nails. Thumbnails too. And, put a few bearings in combines,
Okay, in the Army. What was your job in the Army?
machine gunner first. Well, it was always, cause there was no job for me. Maybe I better tell you all that. The company carpenter rotated home. They wanted to volunteer. Nobody volunteered. So one day, company clerk come out and said the first sergeant wants to talk to you. I wonder what the heck he was talking to me about. I got down there, I found out. As of right now, you are the company carpenter. And I did not know anything about carpenter work. And I don't know what that company carpenter did before me, because he only had a saw that was dull and a hammer. No nails, no nothing else. So, first thing I built was a toolbox. I had to go down to the little town, to the hardware store, and got a square. And I put little pockets for nails, different nails, and the hammer and the square and the saw on the other side. But I learned a few things. I made a lot of little tables, which were easy to make. Whenever the company went out on a maneuvers, the cooks would have us, let me build them a table. They could take them out, but they never had room to bring them back. They left them. So every time they went out in the field, I had to make more tables, which was very simple to do because we was right next to the PX, and the PX got everything in big wooden crates. All I had to do was get one, tear it apart, and I had a flat top, put a few legs on it, and that was ready to go. Anything else? Anything? Well, one of the other things I did build was stands for a volleyball. And I guess I did such a good job, I had to build some for another company. Well, that's where I bent my nails. Have any of y'all looked at the snow that we had up there?
There's a lot.
Got any questions about any of them? Shirley?
How old were you when you were there? How old were you?
23.
Anyone else have questions?
Don't you wanna know nothing about them tents that we had out in the snow?
Know about that?
Tell us about it.
Yes. Tell us about it.
Well, we had those tents, you probably seen them, they were pup tents, now they were squad tents, so they call them, 2 people in them. And, they was heated with a gasoline stove. And, you had to prime them and light a match to them and burn, keep you warm. Well, it was not my tent, but there was another tent one of the guys in there had to go on KP, so he had to get up early. He primed the stove, but it didn't light. The next guy got up, primed the stove again, put a match in it, and it blew up. Burned the tent up.
What about the guy?
He got out all right, he got all his clothes out, but he had to pay for half, they figured the tent was half gone, so he had to pay for half the tent. New one.
One of your pictures had writing on the back of it was a picture of 3 tin trash cans, and it said something on the back about this is what we washed something in.
Oh, our mush kid, mash kits, meth kits, where we washed them.
I think so. I couldn't read the thing very well.
Well, I know it is. Kinda like a barrel, you wash your mash kit out. You had to do that yourself.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay, tell them what a mess, whatever you're saying. What are you saying?
A mess kit is what you
Ate with.
ate with, that's what your plate.
So, was it in a box or what? Or just a plate? Just a plate and
It
a
was-
fork?
It folded up, it was metal,
Okay,
and you had to wash it,
okay.
and washed it in a barrel-like thing.
And going back to your tents, did you just build a tent on top of the snow, or did you dig the snow out
Well,
and
we
then?
tried to get around the snow a little bit, yes.
And how'd you keep warm at night?
You just stay right there.
How'd they keep warm?
Joyce,
at
why
night?
don't you get up there too? There's 2 seats.
That's what, he already told how he kept warm.
At night? They, oh,
Oh, did the tent, you ask.
the tent, how did it stay warm at night if you only, turned it on in the morning?
You had a sleeping bag,
Insulated, I hope? I don't know what they had back then.
we was prepared for it, we was prepared for it. Now, if you wanna know how cold it got, we don't know how cold it got, nobody had a thermometer. But in the barracks, we slept t-shirt and shorts, heavy long johns, your socks on, underneath a sheet, a single army blanket over that tucked in, a double army blanket over the top of that, another single army blanket over that tucked in, and on top of that, your overcoat.
Wow.
And the heat in there was steam heat, and it got so cold that some of the radiators would freeze up at night. And we had a butt can,
What's
a
that?
gallon, a gallon can, about a third full of water that would fill your cigarette butts in, so that nothing get on fire, and they would freeze up. So you know, it was pretty dang cold.
Who was president during the Korean War? Who was president?
So,
Truman? Did you like him?
well, more or less, he was all right.
Okay,
Pretty good.
good. Anybody else? 5th and 6th, I know you have questions wrote down.
I think they've been answered already.
She didn't put them pictures out?
She put some of them out. So, where was that?
Well, it's just something that, thought was decent, took a picture of it. I had a camera I carried around most of the time, after a while. Anything looked odd or something, I took a picture of it.
There's water there if you need water.
And, we had the Japanese would develop our film, and then we had a dark room where we could make the picture. And the picture that I was looking for that I couldn't find is a picture of me that I put in backwards. And it shows me perfectly, but with my pistol on my left side. And that was a no-no. You had to have it on your right side. I was looking for that, but I never did find it.
I don't think I've ever seen it. Okay, when you said you were skiing and you were pulled by ropes by a weasel, what is a weasel?
That's a tracked machine, had tracks on it. That would pull it.
So that it would go in the snow good?
Oh, yes, that's what they were made for.
Did you ever go into any of these kind of buildings?
No, I never did. That's the temple, I think.
Okay.
They were Buddhists, Buddhists or something like that.
Buddhist.
I think here's one of the tents, and they're not very big, like, did everybody see that one?
Good, there we hear.
I was showing, these are the tents, correct? Is that right?
Yes,
So they're not, I mean, they're not very big.
of course not.
Would they sleep one guy, two guys, two?
And you couldn't stand in them? You couldn't stand up in them?
Not very good.
I know a lot of these kids are related to people around here, people you know, so could you tell them like who your friends were back home? Because they probably know some of the names. Like who were your buddies in Pilot Grove?
You mean back then?
Yeah.
Well, Clyde Twinner. Anybody kid with Clyde Twinner?
They don't know.
Norman Girk, Raymond Lang, Lawrence Lang,
That's Norman Gerke that you all know by. Who else?
Raymond Lang, Lawrence Lang, Kenny Lammers.
Kenny Lammers was a bus driver, you guys know him.
For years and years. Now, I don't really know where anybody went, because when I went to school, I was the only one from our bunch that went to school there, that school. Now, Norman Girk did go to a different school. He went to Clerk Typist School, and he worked, I don't know what he did after that.
Sorry, I'm full of questions.
Well, go ahead, hell, I got more time than money.
So what was your life like before the war? Like growing up?
Well, I lived on a farm, that's what I did, on a farm, farm work.
And you had siblings?
One brother and two sisters.
One brother, two sisters. And did you go to St. John's?
Absolutely. That's where they kicked me out of school.
She got in trouble. And you had half days, right? They still had half day school back then?
Half days.
Did you get out at noon?
Don't ever remember getting out at noon.
Oh, I thought my Uncle Butch told me they only went half days.
No, he had to take his lunch in a pail and share with his sister, and when he got in trouble, he had to sit on the steps, and she had to sit with him because her lunch was with his.
And you walked to school, right?
Oh,
No?
Uphill both ways.
back when I was 5, I did walk to the bomber school with my brother. He was older than me. And I presume my mom was pregnant with Bonnie, and she wanted to get rid of me anyway. So that I did walk to that school, but I was not enrolled in that school.
Because he was too young.
But at the end of school, when they graduated, I can definitely remember that teacher saying that she would promote me to the 2nd grade, but my parents wouldn't have nothing to do with that. I had to go to 1st grade. And that's when the school bus run. But it was almost a half a mile where we had to walk to meet the school bus.
Right. Because where did you live at? exactly?
Well, actually, where I was barred at, there's no house there or no buildings there at all. And when we moved from there, just right across the field, that old house has been tore down now too.
But it was in Clear Creek?
Clear Creek, right,
It was, what was the name
By the
of the bridge?
Lamarine River.
By Thomas Bridge?
yeah.
Oh, by Thomas Bridge. You guys know where that's at? You guys know where Thomas Bridge Loop is? So back in there.
Yes. And it was up on a hill off of the gravel road, right before, the turn right before you get to the Thomas Bridge.
Gotcha. So what would you say was the biggest difference in Japan than the United States? Like, what was the hardest adjustment?
Well, their culture was different than ours. Like I said about the bathroom deal, they didn't make nothing out of that. And,
What do you
their
mean?
transportation was bus or train. And the ladies carried their babies on their back. And when the little devil got hungry, she somehow slung him around to where he could get his dinner. But that was odd too. But that was their mode of transportation, the bus, and most of the time it was standing room only. And the only vehicles that I can really remember is the three-wheel pickups that they had. That was a motorcycle front in front with a cab over it and a little butted box in the back.
How many people could get in that vehicle? How many did it hold?
But just the driver, he was just set on, just like a motorcycle
But
seat.
nobody else could be in it?
No,
Oh.
Anybody else have questions? Going once, going twice, okay.
I hear it's gonna be a tough one, I can just see that on her face, it's gonna be a tough one.
In Japan, did they have any like rice farms or fruit farms or something like that? Any like
Why don't you
farms?
stay up here?
Did they have rice farms or fruit
Yes,
farms?
yes, yes. And most of, I did see them plant rice once. And they were all ladies. Of course, now you gotta remember, this is after the war, and most of the men were killed or crippled, and the ladies did the work. And, the ladies wore brown shaggy pants. And they would, what I can remember, they was lined up in a rice field, planting rice. And that was their main meal, rice and fish. And I only seen one Japanese eat with these
Chopsticks?
here. Chopsticks.
What did they eat?
Anybody wanna look at them?
They'll probably pass them around.
Is that okay if they pass them around?
Sure.
Okay.
Now that was fascinating to watch that man eat rice cakes with those. And he was real good.
So when they planted the rice, was it in water or did they flood it with water?
Seemed to me like it was muddy and it was planting plants.
Oh,
What
Not
it
just-
seemed to me like. Oh, and we did go to a fish market once. And they had all kinds of fish in there. And they even had an octopus hanging up in there.
and he bought a lot of this type of things and the chopsticks and that, over there and sent it home. So,
China? The China?
Yeah, he bought a huge set of china that people don't even eat off anymore, because paper plates is easier. But that was, yeah, and he would just send it home. So you had to wear a gun all the time? Did you wear a gun all the time? You had a gun?
No, not when I was carpenter, no.
Anybody else? Did you ever get to visit Hiroshima or Nagasaki, or were they not allowed to go there?
Well, when you didn't know any Japanese, you pretty well stayed pretty close to home.
Yeah.
Because on that time we wanted to go to that air base, and we got every place but the air base. That kind of weakness.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I was gonna ask, what was your favorite meal that they served you? Or was it all bad?
It was all nourishing.
Yeah, that's true.
Some was better than others. Okay, I'll tell you that little story too. One time when we was in the field, they had a guy on KP, I guess he wasn't the smartest in the world, he was dumb like me. He stirred the potatoes in a big pot. And you got a lid on the pot, you put it down on the sand, and when you pick the lid back up, we had sandy potatoes.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's one day we didn't have potatoes.
Yeah, that would not be very good.
Do you keep in touch with any of your friends from the, or did you keep in touch with any of your friends from the Army
Just for a while.
for a while?
hmm One was from Philadelphia, no, Westchester, Pennsylvania, and one was from North or South Carolina.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much. And if you don't mind, the kids might come up and look at some of your other artifacts. Is that okay?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. But otherwise, we will.
Don't charge them anything. I
Turn our
won't charge
video
them anything for today.
Okay.
Now, tomorrow, I'll have to
Tomorrow,
charge
if you
them.
ask. Well, thank you so much.